as I was saying, in this past year, I really have changed, not necessarily what I do, but in what order I do it. What I mean by that is we're always very quick to change the type of shows we do, the recipes we do, even the different types of show formats that we do. But I found for me, the one thing I wasn't changing was the format of how I build team members. It was the same every single show. You're going to see me try to avoid the word recruiting as much as possible because I personally hate that word. I'm building a team, I'm not building an army. That word, in my eyes, that word recruiting instills fear from the very beginning of the time you say it. So I want you to join my team. I'm not recruiting you whenever possible. It's hard because all the verbiage out there says recruiting, so it's hard to get away from them. But let me ask you this. It's a proven, well, let me backtrack. It's a proven fact that the number one reason why people do not try this business is out of fear.
Yeah.
Now, it's also a proven fact that as we get older, we're less likely to make changes, especially if those changes have to do with ourselves. And even more importantly, we're less likely to take chances with money. We're all looking to kind of set secure futures, retirements, whatever the case may be. When you're in your 20s and 30s, it doesn't matter. If you got money in your pocket, you're going to spend it. When you're in your 30s and 40s, it takes a little bit more to pull that money out of your pocket. And when you're in your 50s, you're going to hold on to that for dear life. Why do I bring this up? It has nothing to do with age. It has to do with fear. We've all been in that situation when you're at a show. Let's face it. You're at a show, there's always going to be somebody in that show. Before you even do whatever it is you do, there's always going to be someone in that room that wants to book a party, right? And you've really done nothing yet. They came with the excitement of maybe, you know, their friend Sarah said, oh, you got to buy a stone. Great, the stone turns into a show, and so forth and so on, right? There's always going to be somebody in that room that may be thinking about this business. The person who comes to the show who's thinking about the business, half your job is already done. But what about those two or those three people who are sitting in the room, may want to try this, but are so afraid to give it a shot? I can tell you now, call me the underdog, but I want those three people on my team. I can easily sign Sarah, who came in here doing backflips wanting to try the business. That's easy. I want the two or the three that are whispering in the corner, oh, should I, shouldn't I? Yes, you should. And I'm going to show you how. Some of the common types of fears. Fear for the lack of time. We hear that all the time, right? Oh, I don't have time, I have 6 kids, and it just goes on and on. Fear that they don't know enough people. You hear that a lot too. Well, I only got 4 friends. Well, that's okay. Each one of your friends knows at least 10, so now you have 40 friends. Lack of ability. We're asking them to try a business that they may have never even heard of. So how do they know they can be successful? So they're starting already thinking, I can't do what you do, and you hear that a lot at shows. I tell people the story all the time. I remember my very first show. I signed on, the show was at 5 o'clock. I was in this woman's driveway at 3 o'clock. I started packing my car at 1 o'clock. Every product I owned was in my car. When I got to her car, to her house, I was already sweating. She pulls up at 5, which means I've been sitting there since 3. She looks at me, she sees my car. She kind of knew me. She didn't really know me personally, but I knew her from through another friend. And her first remark to me was, "Are you moving in?" I opened the door. I proceeded to rearrange this whole woman's house. Everything that was on her coffee table, her kitchen table, her mantle, her side tables, everything was cleared off and now was replaced with Pampered Chef products. Long story short, by the time I did the show, repacked my car, got in my car, got home, what should have been a 2 to 3 hour process was 10.5 hours. It's now 2 o'clock in the morning. I get on the phone, I get in the house, I call my director at 2 in the morning. Because she said, "Call me when the show is over." I called her.
That's great. Oh my God.
She creeps to the phone, not awake, and she's like, "Hello?" I said, "Arlene, do you want to tell me why I'm doing this again? I calculated how much money I made today, and I made about $6 an hour." She's like, "Brian, it's 2 o'clock in the morning." I said, "I know, you told me to call me when I got back from my show, so I did. You just got home now?" And of course, then we started talking about how the show went. And she couldn't stop laughing. And the more she laughed, the more aggravated I got. She's like, "Brian, just go to bed. We'll talk tomorrow." I said, "Okay, Arlene." Well, henceforth. But the reason why I say this, I had no idea that I didn't have the ability to do it. I thought I didn't have the ability to do it. Here I am 14 years later. So we all have the ability. We just need to uncover that. And some people need your help to uncover that. Mostly, the biggest reason people do not try this business is for fear of failure. Let's face it, folks. No one sets out on any journey with the intention to fail. Right? We all want to succeed. As I said, my goal at every show is to get the most fearful person and get them on my team. Because it's the fearful person, believe it or not, who now will come onto your team and actually listen to what you have to say. The one who's jumping from the rafters, more likely than not, is going to come into this game with the "I know this" attitude. And that's the one, not always, but in most cases, those are the ones that are hard to train. You know, you can't train the untrainable, okay? If you're having any idea that what I'm talking about doesn't work, let me give you some stats. This year alone, I have signed 40 new team members.
Wow.
Now, here's what I'm most proud of. 2015, I signed 40 new team members.
Not 60.
Here's what I'm most proud of. And these are kind of stats I've never had in my life on my team before. Of those 40 new consultants, 39 of them are still on my team. Okay? These are stats I've never seen before. And I've only seen these kind of stats because I've changed the way I present the same 4 basics of a show that we've all done all the time. Now, how did I change it?
Yeah, I want the magic.
Here you go. We all get to a show, we just kind of do our basic opening, talk a little bit about ourselves, talk a little bit about the business. I do not, and you're gonna get maybe angry, throw things, I don't know, it's up to you. But the bottom line is, I do not talk about the business in my opening. I am a firm believer, and this year has proven it. I cannot get you on my team. Well, let me restate that. I've got a better shot of working with you on my team if I first get you excited about a product. So in the beginning, I'm going to talk a little bit about myself in terms of why I do what I do. And I tell people this all the time. Before my prior life of Pampered Chef, I was a senior vice president of a bank for almost 20 years.
Really?
So every day was suit and ties for me. Every day people hated me because it was my job, because I worked for a very stupid, for lack of better words, stupid bank, who would just tend to give people credit cards with open-ended dollar amounts on the bottom. These are people like you and I buy shoes and clothes on credit cards. These people were buying houses and boats and yachts. And then what happens? The husband cheats on the wife cheats on the husband, they decide to get divorced. Guess who's gonna stand in line for the bank and represent the bank to make sure we get paid? So they saw me come and they hated me. So I came from an environment where I was hated every day. Trust me, after about 15 years, the hate was mutual. Okay. And why I ended up quitting the bank really had nothing more to do with someone parking in my parking space. It was as simple as that. I went to work one day, it was raining. I had, as an officer of the bank, you had designated parking under the garage, you never had to worry about anything. I pulled into my parking space, well, only to find out somebody was in my parking space, which led me to end up being in a situation where I had to park at the clear other end of the parking lot. By the time I got from my parking space to the front door, I literally was soaked because it was pouring. Go to reach for my badge, go to cross my body to put the badge against the plate. What do? I hit my coffee cup. The coffee cup spills backwards. Now I've got gel running from here to here, coffee running from here to here. I walked in the door, and I remembered, it was a series of doors. I walked in the very first door, and I literally just stopped, dropped my briefcase, looked up in the air, and I said, God, we don't talk much, but please, give me the strength not to kill them today. Now, keep in mind, I'm working for a bank. I'm not working for a brothel. I'm not working at a bar. I'm working for a bank, okay? And then I just remembered I took 2 more steps, and I swear I'm not an avid believer of the hereafter, people taking control of your body, but I believe that day somebody did. Because from that point forward, I don't remember a few things that happened. But I do remember walking in to my senior vice president's office, looking him dead in the eye, looking like something that somebody just dragged out from the gutter, and said to him, Jim, I quit. Before I even gave him a chance to respond, I picked up my briefcase, walked around to the next series where my office was, picked up my favorite pen, the only one picture I had in my office, my favorite coffee mug, opened my briefcase, took my arm across my desk, slid it like this, whatever fell in my briefcase went home with me, whatever went on the floor stayed on the floor, and I never went back. Now, and I tell this to people at shows all the time. I don't recommend you do this, but that's what I did. And that's what I had to do to keep my sanity. Keep in mind, folks, it took me almost 20 years to get to that point. But here was my life before that. Up at 4, to be out of the door by 6, to be to work by 8, to leave at 6, to be home by 8. 20 years.
Wow.
Friday nights used to come. Thank God I had very understanding neighbors and lots of tall trees around my house, because I would get in the car, I'd get out of the car on a Friday night. By the time I got from the garage to my house, I was butt naked because I absolutely hated wearing suits. I'd get in the house, I'd knock the phone off the wall, go into the library, which had the old secretary with the slide up that had lots of alcoholic bottles. I'd grab one, I'd go sit on the couch, and I would zone out for at least 2 hours. That's how I recovered from a Friday. So my sanity was, I was losing it. The bottom line, and why I point this out is because it's a funny story at shows, and I tell people all the time, anybody can do this job. I went from predominantly a man's world, dressed in suits and ties, to wearing an apron and selling spatulas to women. So if I can do it, you can do it too. And that's kind of how it worked, okay? But basically, again, I focus on the underdog. Because you know what? I was an underdog. And someone many, many, many years ago took a shot on me. So I'm returning the favor at every single show by finding as many underdogs as I can, okay? Now, how do you kind of go about talking, you know, in your opening of your show and try to focus on the underdog? Well, and you've heard it all the time here today, building that relationship. I make it a point to spend at least 5 minutes in the beginning of the show to learn as much as I can about as many of them as I can. I mean, obviously, you know, you can't work it all, okay? But basically, ask them simple questions. I don't even get into, you know, how many people have been to Pampered Chef shows before. I don't get into that in the beginning, okay? But basically, ask them questions like, who's the primary cook in the family? You get hands raised. Who's the CEO of your own house? Everybody's going to raise their hand on that. And it's really fun if you have a husband and a wife at the show, because they both do it. And then there's your grand opening for, let's have some fun with this, okay? But basically, you want to ask them simple questions. And the one question I make sure I always ask is, how many people here have a full-time job? And how many people here love that job? Usually, you're going to get at least 75–80% of them that are going to raise their hand and say they love their full-time job. I mean, that they have a full-time job. If you're lucky, 20% of them will say they love it. So what does that mean? That means I've already got a big ballpark to play with here. Now, I start to kind of, and I do tell them a little bit about my fear. After we talk about getting to know them a little bit. I talk a little bit about my fear. And keep in mind, my fear when I came into this business was this. The biggest fear I had was I was a man. That normally wouldn't have feared me in my previous job because I was in a predominantly male world, okay? But I know when I got invited to my first Pampered Chef show, I said to her, Kathy, I'm only going to this show because of you. But please don't tell me, and this is exactly what I said, please don't tell me I'm gonna be the only guy there, we're gonna sit in a room and talk about plastic bowls for 3 hours. Because all I knew of was Tupperware. I didn't know of Pampered Chef. So I'm thinking, okay. So I tell them about the fears, me being a man in this world, in this type of business. having no sales experience whatsoever. And I kind of comfort them a little bit by talking about my fears, okay? Then I go right into building excitement for some of our top selling products. Now, wherever you may live, that product may be different than where it is where I live, but whatever that product is, make it a point to start talking about why they want to own that product. Even if you're doing like an ear demo, talk about a couple of quick recipes you make with it at home, but talk about those top selling products. And always make sure a few of those products are in the starter's kit. Again, whether you use them or not, irrelevant. Talk about them, okay? And then you go right into planting the desire to booking a show. Let's face it, you've got someone sitting there and you're talking about, you know, a $190 grill pan. Well, let them know they can get that for free. Keep in mind, up until this point, I've still not talked about the business. Because here's my thought on this stage of it, the opening. How many times have you been at a Pampered Chef show and you've asked people, okay folks, how many people have been to Pampered Chef shows before? And they raise their hand, right? There's always 4 or 5 in there that haven't. We don't like those numbers and we wish it was less, but the bottom line is always 4 or 5. You start talking to them about the Pampered Chef business, you've totally lost them. They don't even know what Pampered Chef is, and already you want them to do a business? Easy. Go easy with that, okay? That's why I don't talk about the business in the beginning. I want to get to know them first. Now, I keep that opening very simple, relatively quick. Then we go right into the whole recipe portion. This is where the fun begins. I'm an avid believer, this is me personally, I'm an avid believer of station style shows. If you haven't tried them, I strongly suggest you do. If you don't know how to do them, it's very simple. Get 4 placemats out, set one up for each member of your family, make a meal together, there's a station style show. That's all it is. Now, where I come from, there's a lot of times there's restrictions in terms of space. Coming from the New England area, more likely than not, I mean, when somebody says, oh, I have a huge kitchen, great. That means it's the size of a walk-in closet in my area. So a lot of times, I don't always get to do the full station style show like I would like to. But I don't worry about that because you can bet somewhere, somehow, I'm going to find place for at least 2 cutting mats. And ultimately, even if I don't or can't do a station style show, before everybody gets comfy and cozy on the couch, I have them come up and I demonstrate at least 2 products. My favorite go-to products these days are the close and cut and the manual food processor. Because those to me are still the type of products in my area that are getting the wows. So I demonstrate something, and it's something as simple as bringing a pint of cherry tomatoes because I can use that for both. So I show them those 2 products, and then we kind of, I'll let them go sit down if I'm not doing a full service, full station style show. Okay? So you want to kind of talk about a couple of the key products. Now, again, the same scenario. You want to make sure during your station style that you're demoing at least a couple of the products that are in the kit. You know, granted, we can sell the other products, and we're going to talk about the other products, but if we can focus on the kit products, half of our battle is done. I mean, think about it. $99 kit, you're showing them a $55 manual food processor. It's easy to say, Susie, you spend $44 more and you're getting another $300 in products. Right? Focus a little. I'm not saying make your key show about it. I'm just saying focus on a couple of the products. Here's where listening becomes important. Somebody told me this, and I know it's corny, but it's true. Somebody told me this a long time ago. God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. We're supposed to listen twice as much. It just kind of stuck with me, okay? So you listen whenever possible. Listening is really key because now, as Kim talked about those red flags, we sometimes hear them from a distance, and we have to be wise enough to pick them up and remember who said them. So ultimately, you can focus on that a little later, but the bottom line is listen to those conversations. So we've kind of gone through the demo, recipes in the oven, on top of the stove, or in my favorite place, the microwave. I laugh at this all the time. Before Pampered Chef, I used to have a somewhat of an industrial kitchen. I mean, backtrack long before when I was young, I did go to culinary art school. So I am a certified chef. Long before my excursion to banking and now back to Pampered Chef. But the bottom line is, I did have a big kitchen and I did have a huge stove. And it's ironic because now all I do is dust it off. I use the microwave for everything. Sorry, folks. So now we go to the actual closing part. The demo's being kind of, the recipe's cooking. We're going into the demo. Everybody's got their lap boards. I use lap boards. We go over again the host benefits, the great benefits of hosting a show. Then after we talk about the benefits of the show, of hosting a show, I quickly talk about the different types of consultants we have in our business. Part-time, full-time, Facebook consultants, catalog consultants, virtual, whatever you want to call them. I break it down to how many the different types of consultants we have. Because again, people look at me and they think, I could never do what he does. You know, I have a full-time job. I do this, I have that. These are my responsibilities. I cannot do what he does, okay? So I talk to them about that. Now, usually what happens by this time between the planting of the seeds and all of these other things that have happened, I've usually got at least 2 to 3 people who are interested in hosting a show. Okay? So here's what happens. After we kind of talk about that, I basically ask the question to everybody. Who here is interested in hosting a show? Out loud. To everyone. Let's say Marna says yes. I walk right over to Marna and I give Marna a host packet. Okay? But when I give Marna the host packet, I ask her a couple of little quick questions. And I would say something like this. Marna, would you be interested in not only reaping all the free host products, but also receiving a paycheck at your show? Marna says yes. I put yes right on her host packet. Marna says no. I put no on her host packet.
You say that in front of everybody.
I'm sorry?
You say that in front of everybody.
In front of everyone. If she has volunteered to host a show or is interested in hosting a show, I walk right over to her and I give her a host packet. Right there and then on the spot. I just ask her that simple question. Would you be interested in earning the commission from the sales of your show when we do it? Yes or no? Or do you need to get more information? whatever the answer is. If she puts yes, I put yes. If it's maybe, maybe, no, no. So it's on her host packet. Okay? And I proceed to do that with all the other 2 or 3 people. So now I've kind of brought the focus down at my full service checkout to really making sure I'm focusing on these 3 people who walk up to me with host packets. And you can't miss them because my host packets are either bright red, bright purple with sticky green neon stickies on them, something that if I'm standing in the corner of the room, I can see a host packet over there on the table. I want to be able to see it. Okay? So basically now comes the time, everybody kind of has ordered, placed their order, they're eating. Now it's time for the full service checkout. I cannot stress enough the importance of a full service checkout. If you're not doing it, learn to do it. Learn to do it. But again, I'm going to back up a second with that full service checkout. The order in which you ask the questions is crucial. Because even people who are sitting in that crowd who may not have thought about hosting a show, if you ask the questions in a correct order, they may have changed their mind by the time they came back up. Especially the 2 people who were sitting next to Marna, all they heard was commission. So people change their minds, okay? So you want to be cautious of how you ask the questions. I don't stop my full service checkout by saying, what part of the business intrigued you? Because anybody who's that close, I've just lost them. Especially, and I'm not trying to put us in an age bracket, but especially the crowd that's 40 and 50 and above. 20s and 30s, maybe. But again, you have to adapt how you ask those questions to the crowd. We're not this kind of square cut business. It has to be flexible, it has to be changeable. You have to change them up. So basically now, everyone that comes up, we talk about did they find everything they wanted? We did a little customer care first. We talked to them, did you find everything you'd like? More than likely than not, they're gonna say, well, yeah, I found everything I wanted, but I want a whole lot more. Oh, great. We're gonna put you right over here, we're gonna get a show booked with you. Because now, why pay for it when you can get it for free? So we kind of go through the process of the rest of the full service checkout with them. You ask them about, did they have fun? Are they interested in hosting a show? At the end, the last question I'll ask them, in that scenario, keep in mind, these are not ones who've already decided to book a show. So at the end, I basically would ask them, is there anything that I did tonight from the business perspective that you can see yourself doing? Just to get some general feedback. And if need be, I take them back through the full service checkout again and try to get them booked for a show. Now,
Can you repeat that?
I'm sorry?
What you say about, is there anything in business?
Well, basically, I just ask them general questions. What is it that I did tonight that really you could see yourself doing? Because I'm very clear about what it is I do and how much money I'm going to make. Somebody told me a long time ago in this business, I used to equate everything to hours. Meaning, a consultant would make, $20 an hour, $30, whatever the hourly wage is. They told me a long time ago, stop that. Tell them how much money you're going to make tonight. Don't break it down to hours. Say this is how much you're going to make for the night. And I'm very clear about that at the shows, okay? So now, let's just kind of fast forward really quickly about the ones who are coming up who do have the packets in their hand. Okay? So these are the 2 or the 3 that have the packets in their hand. The first thing I want to do is I want to focus on that order. So I'm going to get their order, I'm going to kind of help them process the order, put it in my folder. Then I'm going to set a date for their show. I try whenever possible to get a date that night. Let's face it, as much as we really try to do that, it doesn't always work. But whenever possible, I try to get the date. I also let them know that it's our full intention, if they said yes on this folder, it's our full intention of making this show their very first show. Now, all I've really done is made them and help them plan their grand opening show is all I've done. Okay? So you work with them to kind of get their grand opening show done. If you can't get the time set, you usually want to get the time set within a 24-hour time period. So you're going to call them within 24 hours, set up their
You've got about a minute or 2.
Yep, we're just about done. The last thing I just want to, and I want to kind of wrap it up because I know that I could go on forever with this, but the bottom line is this. Once you scare them away, and we hear this term all the time, do it scared. Yes, I'm not a big fan of do it scared. I'm not. But as a consultant, once you are a consultant, you can do it scared, and I get that. But you're not going to be a consultant if you're too scared to try from the beginning. So we as consultants have to find those that are afraid to try and get